The sound of crystal hitting marble echoed through the Meridian Hotel's ballroom at exactly 9:47 p.m. on a humid August night. 300 guests turned their heads in unison as champagne glasses, worth more than most people's monthly rent, shattered across Italian marble that had been quarried specifically for this Manhattan penthouse venue. Carmen Rodriguez froze in the center of the dance floor, her burgundy hotel uniform now splattered with Dom Perignon 2010. The 32-year-old Latina woman had been invisible to these people for 4 years, serving New York's elite with the kind of discretion that made her blend into the wallpaper. Tonight, one missed step had made her the center of attention at the engagement party of the year. "You clumsy fool." The voice belonged to Rashid Al-Mansouri, whose oil fortune had just broken the Forbes top 50. The 43-year-old Syrian-American businessman's face flushed red above his custom Armani tuxedo. "Do you have any idea what those glasses cost? Each one is worth more than you make in a month." His fiancée Victoria Sterling glided over with the practiced grace of someone born into Connecticut old money. The 29-year-old blonde's emerald eyes sparkled with cruel amusement. "Rashid, darling, someone like her has no business being at a party like this. Fire her immediately." Carmen knelt among the crystal shards, but she didn't apologize. Instead, she studied Rashid's face with an intensity that made him shift uncomfortably. There was something in her dark eyes that he couldn't identify, something that felt familiar yet dangerous. The DJ, reading the room's uncomfortable energy, put on Por una cabeza, a classic Argentine tango that seemed to mock the chaos below. That's when Rashid had what he thought was a brilliant idea. "Do you know how to dance?" he asked, his wine-loosened tongue turning cruel. The question drew snickers from the crowd. Carmen looked up from the broken crystal confusion flickering across her features. "I don't understand, sir." "It's simple," Rashid announced, his voice carrying across the ballroom. "If you can dance this tango better than my beautiful fiancée, I'll marry you instead of her." The laughter that erupted was deafening. The absurdity of an Arab oil tycoon marrying a Latina hotel worker struck everyone as the funniest joke they'd heard all evening. Victoria's laughter tinkled like wind chimes. "Oh, Rashid, you're terrible. This woman probably can't even walk in a straight line, let alone dance tango." But Carmen remained silent, still kneeling among the fragments. When she finally stood, there was something different about her posture, something that made the laughter die in a few throats. "I accept," she said quietly. The ballroom fell silent so suddenly you could hear the air conditioning humming. Rashid blinked hard, certain he'd misheard. "What did you say?" "I accept your challenge." Carmen repeated, her voice steady now. "But there's one condition." Victoria's laugh returned sharp and cutting. "A condition? Who do you think you are to make demands?" Carmen ignored Victoria completely, keeping her gaze locked on Rashid. "When I win, you keep your word, even if it was said in jest." The crowd began to murmur. This wasn't going according to script. Rashid looked around at the sea of expectant faces, his business associates, his investors, Victoria's society friends. They were all watching. He couldn't back down now without looking like a coward. "Fine," he said, convinced he was about to witness the most entertaining humiliation of the evening. "But when you embarrass yourself, I don't want to hear any excuses." Carmen nodded once, then walked to the center of the dance floor with a fluid grace that made several people pause mid-whisper. What Rashid couldn't have known was that the woman he was about to humiliate had been waiting 4 long years for exactly this moment. And behind her practiced invisibility lay a story that would transform this gilded cage of privilege into a courtroom of justice. The stage was set. The music was playing. And Carmen Rodriguez was finally ready to dance. Victoria stepped onto the polished floor first, her diamond bracelet catching the chandelier light. She'd studied ballet as a child and jazz dance in her sorority days. Enough to impress men at parties, but nothing that required real dedication. Her movements were competent graceful, even drawing appreciative nods from the male guests who watched her hips sway to the passionate rhythm. When she finished with a dramatic dip, polite applause rippled through the crowd. Victoria curtsied, confident she'd just sealed Carmen's humiliation. Carmen approached the center of the floor. She closed her eyes for 3 heartbeats, her fingers unconsciously touching a small silver cross at her throat, a gift from someone who no longer existed in these people's world. Then the music began again. What happened next defied explanation. Carmen didn't just dance, she became the tango itself. Her body moved with a precision that suggested thousands of hours of training. Every step, every turn, every subtle shift of her weight told a story of passion loss and burning determination. She moved like water, like fire, like something divine channeled through human form. Her arms carved shapes in the air that seemed to bend physics. Her legs executed moves that made professional dancers in the crowd lean forward in disbelief. The ballroom held its collective breath. This wasn't the stumbling performance they'd expected from a hotel worker. This was artistry at its purest form. Carmen danced 7 years of hidden rage, 7 years of practiced patience, 7 years of carefully controlled fury into every movement. When the final note faded, silence stretched for nearly a full minute. Then someone, a woman near the back, who recognized true talent when she saw it, began to applaud. Others joined, and within moments the entire room was on its feet, clapping with genuine amazement. Victoria stood pale and trembling, realizing she'd just been outclassed by someone she'd dismissed as inferior. Rashid remained frozen, his champagne glass forgotten in his hand. "Impossible," he whispered. "Where did you learn to dance like that?" Carmen's phone buzzed against her ribs. She glanced at the screen, and for the first time all evening, she smiled. A real smile, not the practiced one she wore during service. "Dr. Martinez," she answered, stepping away from the crowd's whispers. "Did you get the documents we discussed?" Rashid strained to hear, but Carmen kept her voice low. When she ended the call, she turned back to him with an expression that had transformed completely. Gone was the submissive hotel worker. In her place stood someone with steel in her spine and fire in her eyes. "You asked where I learned to dance," Carmen said, her voice carrying clearly now. "I studied at the Academia Nacional de Tango in Buenos Aires for 6 years. I was the youngest principal instructor in their history." Murmurs of confusion swept the crowd. Victoria recovered enough to speak. "That's impossible. If you're some famous dancer, why are you working as a hotel server?" Carmen reached into her apron pocket and withdrew a yellowed newspaper clipping. "Because 7 years ago, my career was destroyed by false accusations of theft at a hotel very similar to this one." Rashid felt ice water flood his veins. Something about her story triggered a memory he'd spent years trying to suppress. The hotel was called Casa Dorada in Miami. Carmen continued watching his face carefully. "And the man who planted stolen jewelry in my locker to protect his own family was a business partner in an oil consortium." The color drained from Rashid's face so completely that several guests noticed. "You're lying," he said, but his voice cracked on the words. Carmen smiled coldly. "Am I? Then perhaps you don't remember Isabella Moreno, the tango instructor who taught your nephew David for 3 months in 2017. The same woman who was framed for stealing a guest's diamond necklace when it was actually your precious nephew funding his cocaine habit." The silence in the ballroom was deafening. Rashid's hands began to shake visibly. "I don't know what you're talking about," he managed, but everyone could hear the lie. "Don't you—" Carmen reached into her other pocket and withdrew a small digital recorder. "Because I have a very interesting recording of your phone conversation with the hotel manager discussing exactly how to frame me for the theft." Rashid tried to laugh, but the sound came out strangled. "You're bluffing. That's impossible." Carmen pressed play. Rashid's voice, clear and unmistakable, filled the ballroom through the DJ's sound system. "Listen, Miguel. We need this handled quietly. My nephew made an error in judgment. but I can't let this damage our family's reputation. Plant the necklace in the dance teacher's room. She's Latina, works for tips. No one will question it. I'll wire $75,000 to your Cayman account tomorrow." The reaction was instant and devastating. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Phones emerged from purses and pockets as guests began recording. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth in horror. "This is fabricated," Rashid shouted desperately, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. "Digital technology can fake anything these days." "It certainly can," Carmen agreed calmly. "But what about this?" She produced a flash drive from her apron's breast pocket. Bank records, email chains, text messages. 7 years of evidence that I've patiently compiled while working invisibly in your world. The ballroom doors opened with a soft whoosh. Dr. Elena Martinez, a distinguished woman in her 60s with silver hair and an impeccable charcoal suit, entered accompanied by 2 FBI agents. Their badges gleamed under the chandelier light. "Dr. Martinez," Carmen said warmly. "Perfect timing." Rashid's eyes darted between Carmen and the newcomers. "Who is that woman?" "My attorney," Carmen replied, "and a former federal prosecutor specializing in financial crimes. Funny how connections work, isn't it?" Dr. Martinez approached with the measured pace of someone accustomed to courtrooms. "Mr. Al-Mansouri, over the past 4 years, my client has meticulously documented your illegal financial activities while serving your private meetings in this hotel." "This is harassment," Rashid sputtered. "You can't prove anything." Agent Sullivan, a tall black man with graying temples, stepped forward and displayed his credentials. "Actually, sir, we can. We have warrants for your arrest and to freeze your accounts. Your assets were seized 2 hours ago." Rashid staggered backward. "My accounts? That's impossible. I have legitimate businesses." Carmen's laugh was soft but cutting. "Remember the invisible waitress who served your private dinners for 4 years? I recorded every conversation, photographed every document you left on tables, copied every flash drive you thought was secure." Dr. Martinez opened her briefcase. "We've also uncovered that Casa Dorada was a money laundering operation. Your nephew David wasn't just stealing jewelry. He was distributing cocaine to VIP guests, using the hotel as his base of operations." Victoria, who had remained silent throughout the revelations, suddenly exploded. "Rashid, you told me you were a legitimate businessman. I'm not marrying a criminal." She ripped the 15-carat engagement ring from her finger and hurled it across the marble floor where it skittered to rest among the broken crystal. "Victoria, wait." Rashid lunged after her. "I can explain everything." But she was already striding toward the exit, her heels clicking like a countdown timer. "There's no explanation for what you've done," she called over her shoulder. "To me or to her?" Rashid turned back to Carmen, desperation replacing arrogance in his voice. "Carmen, we can work something out. I have money. I can compensate you for everything." "With what money?" Carmen asked, tilting her head with mock sympathy. "Your accounts are frozen. Your assets are being auctioned. Your oil companies are under federal investigation. And tomorrow morning, this will be front-page news." As if summoned by her words, reporters began flowing through the ballroom doors. Dr. Martinez had clearly tipped off the press. "Mr. Al-Mansouri." A reporter thrust a microphone toward him. "Is it true you orchestrated a money laundering scheme using luxury hotels?" No comment. Rashid tried to hide behind a marble pillar. "What about the false accusations against the dance instructor?" Another journalist pressed forward. "Will you be issuing an apology?" Camera flashes exploded like fireworks, capturing Rashid's sweaty, panicked face. The man who minutes earlier had mocked a hotel worker was now being hunted by the very media that once celebrated his wealth. Agent Sullivan approached with handcuffs gleaming in the chandelier light. "Rashid Al-Mansouri, you're under arrest for money laundering, tax evasion, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice." As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, Rashid looked at Carmen one final time. "Why did you wait so long?" Why didn't you just come forward 7 years ago?" Carmen stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout. "Because revenge is a dish best served cold, and because I wanted to make absolutely certain that when you fell, it would be forever." As federal agents led Rashid through the crowd of stunned socialites and flashing cameras, Carmen remained in the center of the dance floor. For the first time in 7 years, she felt truly free. The woman they had dismissed as invisible had orchestrated the most public downfall in Manhattan social history. 8 months later, Carmen Rodriguez stood at the podium of Lincoln Center, accepting a thunderous standing ovation. She had just completed her debut performance as principal guest artist with the American Ballet Theater, performing a tango piece that left critics searching for new superlatives. In the months following Rashid's arrest, Carmen's story had spread nationwide. Dance companies, choreographers, and artistic directors who had seen the viral video of her hotel performance began reaching out. Job offers arrived daily. "She's the dancer who was wrongfully accused and then brought down a corrupt billionaire," people whispered as she walked Manhattan streets. But Carmen didn't crave fame. She had reclaimed something far more valuable, her dignity. Dr. Martinez found her in the dressing room after the performance. Rashid's final appeal was denied today. 28 years in federal prison, no possibility of parole. Carmen nodded calmly as she removed her stage makeup. "And David, 15 years for drug trafficking and conspiracy. The Al-Mansouri oil empire has been completely dismantled." "And Victoria," Dr. Martinez smiled. "She married a tech entrepreneur in Seattle. Apparently, she told Vanity Fair that Rashid was the biggest mistake of my life, and Carmen saved me from a terrible future." Carmen chuckled softly. "Ironic. She called me worthless that night." "People change when they realize who really has class," Dr. Martinez observed. "Speaking of which, this arrived for you today." She handed Carmen an elegant envelope with foreign postmarks. Carmen opened it, and tears filled her eyes. "It's from the Academia Nacional de Tango," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "They want me to return as their director of international programs. Will you accept?" Carmen looked out her dressing room window at the lights of Manhattan, the city that had witnessed both her humiliation and her triumph. "I'm considering all my options. I've also received an offer to open my own academy here. Full scholarships for young people from underserved communities." Dr. Martinez nodded approvingly. "Using your experience to help others who faced injustice." "Exactly. I want to teach more than dance. I want to teach resilience. Show these kids that no matter how powerful the people trying to destroy you, if you're patient, strategic, and determined, justice always finds a way." 3 months later, the Rodriguez Dance Academy opened its doors in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn. On opening day, dozens of young people from disadvantaged communities signed up for free classes. Carmen saw in their eager faces the same passion she'd carried at 20. During the ribbon-cutting ceremony, a reporter asked, "Ms. Rodriguez, what advice would you give to people who've faced similar injustices?" Carmen thought carefully before responding. "Don't let bitterness consume you. Transform the pain into purpose. The best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you. It's building something so beautiful and meaningful that their cruelty becomes irrelevant." If you could speak to Rashid today, what would you say? Carmen smiled, watching her students practice through the studio windows. "I'd say, thank you. By trying to break me, you forced me to discover strength I didn't know I possessed. You stole 7 years from me, but you gave me a lifetime of purpose." As the cameras captured her final words, Carmen reflected on her journey. She had learned that true revenge isn't about repaying damage done to you. It's about achieving a success your enemies could never imagine. Rashid had tried to destroy Carmen Rodriguez the dancer. Instead, he had created Carmen Rodriguez the Phoenix. And in the end, that made all the difference. If you enjoyed this story of resilience and justice, remember that everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Treat them with kindness. You never know who might be gathering evidence of your character.